Again, I'm Jennifer Schurter, and you're watching Real Estate Recess. It's Thursday, April 11th. Technology is great, isn't it, when we remember to do all the things? So now that we're 3.5 minutes in, what are we talking about today? Maybe if you read lips, you saw that and you noticed what was happening. This is what happens when we do lives. So we're talking today about what in the world is happening in the Portland, Oregon Metro real estate market. We are going to use the Portland, Oregon Metro Market Action Report that was released about a week ago, and it is data from March. So that is the most current data that we have. But beyond that, we're going to go back in time to the data from March of 2021 and compare notes and see what was happening during that time. And if you remember, March of 2021 was one of those times that was just completely wild with those COVID era home sales that were happening. But we're going to go back even further. We're going to take the time machine back to March of 2009, because what was happening in March of 2009, we were in the middle of the crash, the big real estate crash. So want to break all that down for you and compare notes on those 3 years. And also what I'm happy to do is provide some insights to buyers and sellers that if you are thinking about buying a home or selling a property this year, some things that you need to consider and be aware of. So without further ado, as I realized my mic was muted embarrassingly, let's get started, shall we? If you're watching, leave me a comment. Would love to hear from you. Everybody's got an opinion about these things, so let's go. Before I dig into this data, I want to make it approachable for as many people out there, especially for those who don't technically like to follow all these numbers, or they kind of get stymied by them. It's not an issue. I'm going to try to keep it as high level. So the guy who's the president of my brokerage, Real Broker, is named Sharon Srivatsa. One thing that I've learned from him is that most people tend to care about a couple things. You'll leave me a comment if this is you. They tend to care about a couple things, and that is, how long is it taking for homes to sell in my area, and what could my home sell for? Well, I may not be able to answer the question of what your home is going to sell for, but I can help you understand an average of what our area, what the market here in the Portland metro area, what that's looking like. So that way you can have a general idea. And of course, I can help you deep dive. Leave me a comment. Would love to know if that's something you're interested in, and I'm happy to help. So let's take a look. Let's start by diving into the March 2024 Market Action Report. Here, let me see if it's going to let me do this. Okay, let's go. Here we go. Here is this market action report. So remember, this is data from March, and we just want you to know that. There's a lot of information on this page. A lot of it's very driven by some industry jargon, but again, I'm going to keep it as basic and base level for you so you can understand what's happening. So I'm going to point you to this box on the right that says inventory in months. It's in blue, and you see all the different months of the year, January through December, and the years 2022, 2023, and 2024. So what we have there is called our inventory in months. And what does that mean? Well, this is one way that we measure the market, and if it's a buyer's or a seller's market. So right now, if you see March of 2024 in that final right side column that's showing the first 3 months of the year, it says we have 2.3 months of inventory. And you can see the history over the last couple of years. In March of 2023, we were at 1.6 months. And in March of 22, we were at 0.7 months. What all that means is it would take about 2.3 months to sell everything on the market right now, assuming no other homes were added to the market at all. So what does that mean in terms of a buyer's or seller's market? The rule is, if you've heard this before, I'm sorry to be redundant, but for anybody who's new and watching this, months of inventory we look at in the real estate world, we say 6 months of inventory or more is considered a buyer's market. Anything under 6 months or less, is considered to be a seller's market. So as you can see, at no point in the last couple of years, going all the way back to 2022, have we been in a seller's market or in a buyer's market. We have been in a seller's market for the last couple of years, and that trend has continued into 2024. To what degree has it been a seller's market? As you can tell, with 0.8 months of inventory, 0.8, 0.7, 0.8 going into 2022, that it was very much a seller's market. It was only taking a couple weeks to, in theory, sell the properties that were on the market. Right now, we're trending more towards maybe high twos, low threes on inventory. Still very much a seller's market. We have not yet come close to approaching that 6-month mark. There are some arguments out there that you could say, well, gee, maybe 3 is the new 6. That is very possible. But sellers, if you think of buying a house or the transaction of buying and selling a house with the buyer and the seller, being dealt a hand of cards, the seller tends right now to hold more of the cards, the good cards, in their hand than the buyers. The buyers have more opportunity to negotiate right now than they did back in 2022, where people were giving up inspection contingencies, they were doing appraisal gaps, doing all sorts of things to buy houses, writing offers over ask, things like that. Not to say we don't see that now, because there are instances where that is absolutely happening, but I will say that things have moved a little bit more in buyers' favor. So all that being said, that is inventory months. So we are firmly in a seller's market here in the Portland, Oregon metro area. It's March of 2020 with this March of 2024 data. So then we're going to look at a couple other things. These highlights over here, our new listings actually decreased 7.5% from March of 2023. So we have even really, new inventory. There's less of it than we had last year at the same time. But if we compare it to February of 2024, it's actually increased a little bit, as at least new listings have. Another thing that's interesting, so just taking a look at that, let's move to this next page here. And I'm sorry, this bottom Portland Metro residential highlights doesn't come up very well, but I will read and tell you what's going on there. So what's interesting about this is this will allow us to compare average and median sale price from not only March and February of this year, but also go back in time to March of 2023 and compare. So here we have average sale price is a good figure to look at. A lot of times we can look at median sale price, but I will go ahead and just say this. Median sale price is also not a perfect figure to look at. That number can be skewed very easily by low-priced properties and an abundance of them, or even high-priced properties and an abundance of high-priced properties in a market. So it's not perfect, but again, it gives you an idea. And the same could go for average as well, especially none of this information or data is completely perfect. It's only meant to give you a basic idea of what's happening. So in March of 2024, our average sale price for the entire Portland Metro was $590,400. If we compare that to February, it was $576,900. So it's increased about, let me look at this and I will tell you since it's cut off. Our average sale price has increased over the previous month 2.3%, and it is up 1% over 2023 for the same period. Then we can take a look at our median sale price. Median is the middle, meaning that's half of the homes are more expensive, half are less expensive. So our median sale price in Portland comes in at around $535,000. Last month, it was $530,000. That is an increase of 0.9% over the previous month. But if we look at over March, it's actually up 1.9%. So we're seeing modest growth over the previous year, March to March. So that could answer the question or give you an idea to answer that first question that most people care about, which is what could my home sell for, or what are homes in my area selling for today? The next question is answered here on the far right side on this bottom blue box, where it says total market time. And so right now in March, it's taking about 91 days for homes to sell in the Portland metro area. Last month, it was about 89 days. So we're seeing an increase of a couple days, and that is a very small increase. Last year, it was only taking about 57 days to sell properties. So there's been an increase in time on market. One thing that this number could be skewed by, because again, there's a lot of homes on the market. We're talking about a lot of different counties. I want to say this report is Columbia County, Multnomah, Washington, Clackamas, and I think maybe even Yamhill County is factored into this Portland Metro report. So you have a lot of different areas, lots of different sizes of properties that could skew that. More expensive properties could take longer to sell than a home that's going to have a lot more buyers interested in it because of the certain price point it's at. So again, our total market time is around 91 days for the whole metro on average. So that could also answer your question. So leave me a comment. If you're curious about your area specifically, it's really hard for us to say, well, this is the average, it's going to apply to everybody. It really doesn't. It's just an umbrella figure, so to speak. So every area is going to be different. We can't compare Lake Oswego, which has a very high median and average sale price compared to a lot of the metro. And we can't compare that to Estacada, for instance. Two totally different areas and towns with different market activity, different demand levels, all of the above. So we don't want to compare those two side by side. But this gives us an idea of the influences happening in our market. Okay, hopefully I haven't lost you here. Hope you're hanging with me and continue to hang with me, because now you know what the baseline is here for 2024. Sorry, my dogs are barking. What a day. I muted my mic and was starting this thing off with a muted microphone, and then my dogs are barking. What a day. You know, it's just like what is it? Bill O'Reilly in that famous that video of him where he's like, we're doing it live. Like that's kind of how this feels right now. We're doing it live. So let's go back in time while we're having all the things happening. Let's take a look at March of 2021. I think it's fun to go back in time and see what's been going on over the last couple of years. So this is kind of interesting. So the last one we saw, we were able to see 2022. Well, this enables us to go back to 2019. So this is pre-COVID. 2019, before the lockdowns happened, before all the changes with the influx of relief funds were put into the economy, before, as interest rates started to come down, it gives us a really good and interesting piece of information to compare and see some additional history, because all you hear about is markets in certain areas are going down. We will just look at this and say, this is what happened in 2021 and a few years earlier. And it'll give us a really nice picture of the last about 6 years, 5-6 years. So 2021, March, we were at 0.8 months of inventory. So still very much a seller's market. And if you look all the way to 2019, January, we've been in a seller's market in the Portland metro area since, from this information, and essentially also earlier. We bought our house in 2016, and I can tell you it was a seller's market then as well. We've been in a seller's market in the Portland metro area for going on 10 years, at least 8 years now. So at this point, there's a lot of things going on with that we can get to when we go back in time again to 2009 to talk about what's changed over the years between 2009 and these more recent years that we have here. So again, seller's market all the way through. Look at 2020. Look at what happened as interest rates went down through February, March, April. Interest rates started to go down. COVID lockdowns were happening, March, April, May, all those, what was happening here in our area. But notice our inventory ticked down. What is wild about all of this is that we have an increase. So these March residential highlights, so this is, I'm sorry, I don't have like a fancy pointer highlighter thing on here, but if you look to the left at the top of the page where it says March residential highlights, new listings, there were 3,465 new listings. They decreased 0.1% from the 3,468 listed in March of 2020, but increased 40% from the 2,474 listed the previous year in 2021. That is an enormous amount of increase, 40% increase in new listings. Pending sales increased 42.6% from 2020 and increased over 50% from what they saw in February of 2021. So here's the difference. So remember this, okay? What happened with that, with those closed sales, with what's the pending sales, all of that, and let's compare that here. Let's go back to 2024. All right. We do not have the number. We have a modest increase of 16.3% from the previous month, but we're not seeing that influx of inventory because during these years here, 2020, 2021, 2022, while inventory was very low, we were experiencing a ton of transactions happening. And things were moving so quickly because if you look at our total market time compared to today, 37 days in March of 21, 42 days in February of 21. And that time, that's basically from listing, from when the property is active on the market, all the way to when it closes. Things were closing and moving really, really quickly. And I remember there were points in time where that number was under 30 days as we got into 2022. So this low inventory was truly, things were absolutely flying off the shelves, so to speak, during these COVID era months and years. So it's almost really hard to compare 2024 to what happened over the last few years. So if you're thinking about selling your home and you're saying, gosh, look at these prices. A couple years ago, Bob down the street, Sally around the corner, they sold their houses and got 75 offers, $100,000 over ask. May not be the reality today, but that did set up our pricings that we're seeing today because of what happened during those years. So what was that pricing? So this is interesting. And again, if you can see this at the bottom, this bottom box, Portland Metro Residential Highlights, you'll see that our average sale price here, I'm looking at the wrong document here. This average sale price in March of 2021 was $554,300. That was up 19% over March of 2020. March of 2020 was $465,000. That is a 19% increase year over year. That is a huge jump. So if you think of your home appreciation, your values that you've been watching, a lot of the bulk of that growth came during these months and these COVID era times where homes were for sale. That drove a lot of that demand, those homes flying off the shelves, the low interest rates that people were trying to take advantage of. That is where the bulk of this home price increase has come from, was during these years. We still haven't seen it decline because we are still in 2024. If we go back to, let me go back to this here. If we go back to 2024, you'll notice that we are truly in a low inventory situation because we don't have the new listings. We don't have the pending sales. We don't have the market activity that is crazy happening that is bringing new stuff to the market. So we are truly in a low inventory situation in 2024. So back to 2021. This again, to sum it up, in 2021 and those months, those years, rates were low, things were flying off the shelves. That is what drove the price increases, the values that we see today that we are still trying to normalize from. If I had to compare where we're at today, it really feels a lot more like 2019 in terms of their months of inventory and the trends that we're seeing. That's where I see things for us. So maybe a normalization. 2019 to a lot of people will tell you felt very much like a normal real estate market. So we'll see. Maybe we're normalizing. That's where things are headed. So that's 2021. Leave me a comment with your thoughts. If you have questions about what's going on, let's go back in time, back to the future. Maybe not back to the future, but let's go back in time. We don't need Doc. We don't need Marty McFly to do this, but we can go back in time to March of 2009 and see what the data was like then. And I think this is quite a stark difference that you will see between the months and years leading up to March of 2009 to what we see today and even in 2021. So what was happening during March of 2009? It was the crash. That is where we saw the mortgage crisis happening, where all the mortgage lending institutions fell apart. We saw the short sales and foreclosures, the wave of all of those properties hitting the market. And things were a mess during that time, right? I lived through it. We bought our first home in February of 2007, and We lived in a neighborhood that experienced a tremendous amount of short sale activity, and our values were deeply impacted. I think at one point in time, and lots of sleep was lost over this too, our home had lost something like over $100,000 in value simply from the result of this crash. It was a really stressful time to be a homeowner. I'm happy to say we emerged. We kept the house. We stayed with it. It was the old Dave Ramsey diet, rice and beans and rice, you know. But we made it through, and we were able to sell that property in 2016 and make enough of a profit to get into the home we're in now, which is much better for our family. But all that to say, anybody who looks at this information, you'll see a very big difference. So this inventory months, this little box here in the kind of the upper right side of this market action report, for those who can see this, you can see what happened with the inventory is it gradually started to go up. 2007, 2008. At one point in January, we had 12.8 months of inventory. That is a year. So remember that rule of 6 months or more means a buyer's market. In 2008, some months in 2007, we hit a buyer's market. It was well over 6 months of inventory. And then it continues to go up. We kind of bounce back and forth between 9, 10, 11 months, 15 months of inventory, all the way to January of 2009, 19.2 months. That is over a year and a half worth of inventory. It would have taken a year and a half, basically, to have sold everything that was on the market, assuming no other properties came for sale. There was a lot of inventory out there for buyers to choose from. So what does all that mean for the values of these properties during that time and what the difference was? So our average sale price in 2009, let's see, let me get my stuff right here so I can read it to you. 2009, our average sale price in March was $297,000. If we look at March of 2008, it was $336,700. That is down. The year-to-year difference was 11.8%, 12% drop year over year. Median sale price, we saw a 14% drop year over year. Our total market time in 2009 in March was coming in at 156 days. So that's a good while. It was taking a long time for even the average home to sell during these particular years. So what drove that? Well, obviously we know the short sale and the foreclosures, and one thing that is often talked about in 2000 leading up to the crash was that we were way overbuilt on inventory. There was a lot more homes built, construction was happening, everybody was building like crazy. We had a glut of inventory. And then we had the mortgage crisis layering on top of that said, we are going to lend to anybody. Do you have a pulse and can say you have an income? Fantastic. Here's a loan. That's a gross simplification, slightly sarcastic, but that is what ended up because that was basically us. We had a pulse and an income, and we probably shouldn't have gotten a loan. We were 22 years old. So it's like, yes, I'm saying all that because that was definitely us. I felt like, well, we had a pulse, we could breathe, we had jobs, we make about this much money. They gave us a loan and we were able to get a house. So a lot of challenges came from that, of course, because people overextended themselves and bought these expensive new homes. They over leveraged. A lot of times they were buying new cars and new furniture, way upside down in so many ways during those years. And so that really set up what we saw happen with all the inventory, with the short sales that really built up that bulk of inventory. So then what happened in those years between 2009 and 2019? The crash happened. A lot of builders went out of business. There were a lot of things that happened that started taking inventory out of the market. Over the course of those years, inventory started to come down to the levels that we saw in 2019. Builders have not recovered. We are still underbuilt. The homes that are out there, you could ask a lot of people that might be shopping. It's still very competitive for homes that are exciting to buyers. And I would say that if you have a property that is priced well and is a good product that folks are going to be interested in an exciting area that people want to be in, there's a good chance your home's going to sell pretty quickly, even in today's market. So nationally, there's some interesting things going on too, where right now on the West Coast markets, if we go back to where we're at today, 2024, the West Coast markets have slowed down quite a bit relative to other parts of the country. The East Coast is still seeing, for what I understand, a pretty big, massive, very, very competitive market. Values are still up quite a bit year over year. It usually takes about a year to kind of see some of those differences happen from the East Coast when the West Coast starts to have things happen. So it's really interesting to see how that dynamic will also continue to play out. The other X factor in all of this, of course, is interest rates. What are interest rates going to do this year? Well, yesterday we went and saw a massive jump in interest rates we haven't seen since, I think, 2022. Things are going to be a bumpy ride until the Fed figures out, or until inflation, they see the results of what's happening with inflation that they want to see. So until that time comes, this 7% interest rate, high sixes or low mid sevens, could be the new normal for a while. And I think we're seeing people are getting comfortable with that. We're being strategic. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more. Talk about strategies with buyers and sellers. So there's one more thing I wanted to show you before we get too far in the weeds, is what does this mean for Clackamas County? I have some data here that talks about what's happening in Clackamas County specifically. This is data from December, January, February, and March through this year. This is pending listings in Clackamas County. So as you can see, our sales have increased. Our pending sales are up. They're at 533 as of March, up from the low in January of 407. The low is low in the wintertime, usually because it's the holidays. Not as many people want to move in the winter. So we tend to see that happen. And my guess is as we continue through the spring market, we'll start to see these numbers go up. So this is our median listing price in Clackamas County. In December, it was around $654,725. And then it's ending here in the month of March at $730,000 roughly. So we've seen some increases over the course of time. And again, this is all relative to the types of properties that are on the market, because again, the median's that middle point, with half being more expensive and half being less expensive, reminding you that this is not a perfect metric, but it is something that tells a story of kind of what's happening in the market. Our median days on market, how long it's taking for a home to sell. So this is specific to Clackamas County. Right now, our median days on market is 39 in Clackamas County. You can see that it was in the 60s and 70s, as high as 70 or in the 60s over the last several months. But right now, we are at 39 days on market. And remember, that is initial listing when the property goes live to the closing date when everything is recorded. All right, now that the frog in my throat is hopefully gone, our months of inventory for Clackamas County, we are trending in the month of March slightly lower than the Portland Metro. We are at 2.1 months of inventory. So in Clackamas County, we have specifically, we are trending less than the whole market average for the Portland Metro. Our total listing count here in Clackamas County, we have about 1,253 properties that are on the market right now. And at the top, it says this is the total number of homes for sale, including active and pending listings. So this is not excluding anything that's pending. This is everything that has not actually closed yet. And then active listings, comparing that, is at 712. And you can see what has happened with our active listings over the last few months. Going back here, 1,253. So, a little more than half. So that are active versus pending. New listings, there's about 432. So you'll remember from the Portland Metro report we talked about that it's up. We are up also in Clackamas County so in February we were at 358. So there's now 432. What this means is there's more new properties for buyers to look at, which is exciting to see as well. So leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Are you in your area seeing new properties coming to market? all that good stuff. Would love to know what you think. So drop me a comment. Okay, so I promised, since we went back in time to 2009, we went back in time to 2021, and we talked about what's happening now. So you have all this data. Hopefully I have not bored you to tears. Hopefully my mic being muted for the first 3 minutes, embarrassingly, did not scare you away, and you're still listening to me, which is a huge, huge, amazing thing. So thank you for that. Appreciate you very much for that. I would say, let's talk about some strategies for buyers and sellers, shall we? What does all this information mean to you if you're a buyer and if you're a seller? So first of all, if you're buying a property in 2024, based on the information that you heard about these numbers, what does this mean? How can you apply this to your home search? So I would say, take a look at the area that you live in specifically, or the area that you want to buy a home, and focus on something from an Altos report. Altos reports are going to show you active data up to the minute. Actually, it's up to the week. So every week it's updated, as opposed to this market action report, which is basically a month old by the time we get it. It's prior month's data. Altos reports are going to be able to give you a really good indication of what's happening right now in the area you want to buy a house. So if you see houses that have been on the market, there's some interesting opportunities for, I don't know, 60 days, and maybe in your area, your average time on market or median time on market is more in the 50-day mark or 45 days, then you could say maybe there's an opportunity with these properties that have been on the market longer. What's happening there? And you can dive into the history, you can dive into activity and see what's going on there. A lot of buyers I've worked with, we've found some great success with using that tactic alone. Or maybe it was just a lot of folks' second choice property that ended up not making the cut. So it's always good to look at that and leverage those types of things to see what's going on there. If you're selling your property, that time on market also, I would say, yes, that is in your area. You could say it could take about 60 days to sell my home. That is our average time on market in my neighborhood. Make sure that you pay also good attention to the number of homes that have had a price decrease. If that's a high percentage in your area, I would say it's safe to say you can come in as a new listing and looking like the best opportunity in town by maybe coming in slightly under the market price, which I know nobody likes to hear coming under a market price. I'm not saying it has to be $50,000, but being meaningful and targeting that number, working with your agent and having that conversation might actually be meeting the market where it's at, instead of overpricing and hoping the market comes up to you. That rarely happens. So price it where the market's at, use those numbers to your advantage, and really use the data. Lean on your agent who's going to be advising you on pricing strategy, because sellers, you cannot outmarket a bad price on your home. Let's see, what else could I say out there? Buyers, I would say, yes, you do have more cards in your poker hand to buy a property right now, but I would also caution you to be careful and make sure that you have your agent ask good questions. Make sure your agent asks the right questions to get a feel for what the sellers are looking for in the transaction. Your agent's job is to support you and to represent your best needs as well, but communication never hurt. And if you want something to go smooth and you really like a property and you want to go about doing so in the smoothest way possible with as few speed bumps as possible, good communication never hurts. Asking good questions is never harmful in any way. So make sure that those questions are being asked and that you're getting good answers to those as well. And sellers, I would say, don't shy away from buyers who are asking for concessions, such as closing costs or a rate buy down. A lot of buyers are using that to make things more affordable, to help them get into your property with interest rates. And remember, you saw what has happened with home values over the last few years with that data that we just looked at. So just make sure that you understand and put yourself in the buyer's shoes, even for a minute, to say, if we were buying this house and if we were in their shoes, what would we want to do? What would we want to ask for? And just be empathetic and consider what they're asking for and negotiate a way to have it make sense for everybody. So there you have it. a couple of quick tips for you to end this. Thanks for hanging with me today amidst all of the technical difficulties for Real Estate Recess today. I'm Jennifer Schurter, and thank you for watching. And if you think this is valuable and you'd like to know more and be notified when I'm live or when I post additional videos here, subscribe to my channel, hit the bell to be notified, and share it with a friend. Leave me a comment. Just anything that makes sense to you that you want to offer an engagement, I'm happy to have you be part of this community. And if you're looking to make a move around the Portland Metro Suburbs, the North Willamette Valley here in Clackamas County, wherever out here, I hope you'll consider giving me a call. And I will see you next week for the next episode of Real Estate Recess. Have a great week, everyone.